Welcome back, Red Spotters. On the show here in the Red Spotlight Podcast, I'm your host, Alexis J. Soto, joined not by Peter Martinez. I am here, in fact, with David Francisco. He's been a great help these last couple of months with many of these shows, but for the first time in a couple of months at this point, I am joined by Ms. Alexis Moreno, Lin-Manuel Miranda's #1 fan, and obviously Kyle Lira, the host of the Fantasy Fair podcast, as well as the creator of the Red Spotlight Network, here bringing you all the latest stories coming out of the world of movies. So we'll start off with, guys, it's good to see you again. It's been some time.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a new world. The pandemic is kind of receding. Hopefully, it looks like it. It feels like it. So for today's show, we'll be discussing, as kind of alluded to, Lin-Manuel mentioned, In the Heights. As was teased last week, we have a review. Kyle and I saw it in theaters, as did David and Alexis. Of course, they live in Arizona and they saw it there. And we'll be discussing the film as well as addressing the controversy and, of course, its performance on, streaming and box office. And that's it for today. We will reconvene for an episode of the Fantasy Fair podcast, this entire panel, where we'll have the exclusive review of Cruella, starring Emma Stone and Emma Thompson, as well as a discussion on Avengers Campus. And also make sure to tune into our weekly recaps of Loki with David and I. We just talked about episode 1 last week, and interesting, of course, that we're recording this the night that episode 2 drops, technically speaking. So and of course, Fantasy Fair, as I mentioned last week, will have a end of season recap once the 6 episodes conclude, and so on and so forth. And if you are interested to hear what we thought of A Quiet Place Part 2 and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, Peter and I just discussed that last week. So a lot of content, a lot of reviews, all that coming up. All right, guys. Sounds like you guys are up for it. So let's talk about In the Heights. Before, though, I want to get your thoughts real quick. What was it like for you guys, because you haven't had the chance to actually say this yet, to go back to a movie theater after over 12 months? How was the experience like for you?
So, I was very excited. My stomach was like with butterflies. It was fun. This wasn't the first movie that we watched in theaters. We went to go see another one to test it out, and we chose one that not a lot of people were watching, and so there was only maybe 2 other people in there. But I felt comfortable, so I was like, okay. The movie was not good, but the food was what got me going.
What was the movie?
I don't even remember the name. That's how much I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, I forgot the name too. I know it was a horror movie.
Remember? It was a horror movie.
We were discussing it, and it was Unholy.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. I was gonna say The Sinner, or no, that's not it. Or,
yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, it was, again, not good. But I was just happy to be back.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Kyle, what about you?
I went to go watch a movie about the origins of a puppy killer.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't know, it felt like going, okay, this is probably Catholic guilt and the raised Catholic in me. It feels like going to church after not going for a few years or a few months, and it felt like that. Sorry, I have sinned. Sorry, I've not been in the house of the Lord, but here I am. I'm here to take the Holy Communion, popcorn, and take the blood of Christ, a good jug of Coke, and call it good, and I honestly, like, I felt really good about it. I had a lot of fun. It was just good. Like Tony Stark says, it's good to be back. It was all good to be back, and it felt good to be back because, like, it's kind of our niche. A lot of people's niches are going to restaurants. Ours is going to movies. And it just felt really good being back, when I felt enlightened, I was like, I've missed this so much, and the whole process of it. It was kind of weird, like just stepping in and getting into the gist, because it has been a year since going back, but we came back,
Yeah, it kind of feels like seeing an old friend you hadn't seen in such a long time, and then you're reminded about, like, oh yeah, this is who you are, and this is why you're such a fun time being around with and everything. So for the most part, it's nice to be able to have this back in our lives. It's something that was very missed, very dearly missed, and it was a missing part of 2020, and already having it back, I've already gone back like 2 times. I've seen 3 films already, and it's like, yeah, I need to make up for some lost time here.
I know this. I'm literally watching just like every movie that's
literally
clearly.
Right.
Peter Rabbit 2. Let's go see that shit.
And that's kind of why it's getting me a little bit more peeved than usual that we can't. There's a movie opening this week, but on Disney Plus, and that is Luca, and it was originally supposed to be in theaters, and it pisses me off because, like, man, I would have gone out of my way to go see that night, and now I got to stay home.
I feel like maybe last minute they're gonna add it to theaters. I don't know.
They got like 2 days to change their minds.
Yeah.
They got, come on. But anyway, movies are back. And here we are with In the Heights. This is the first proper musical we've had in quite some time. Like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. What was one of the last ones we all saw and talked about was...
What was it,
I mean,
La La Land?
No, Mary Poppins, I think. Wasn't it? But Hamilton last year wouldn't count, necessarily speaking, because it wasn't an adaptation. It was more of a recorded presentation. So before, what was it, Alexis?
Mine was Mamma Mia 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're not Mamma Mia stans. But I hear it was good, though.
I loved it. Oh, my God.
I love ABBA, but I never, like, dived head deep into Mamma Mia.
I loved it. I like it a lot better than the second one. The first one was okay.
Yeah, I think for me, Mary Poppins Returns might have been the last, like, the traditional musical. I'm not counting Lion King because...
Oh, hell no.
I completely forgot that existed.
I felt like a captive prisoner in that audience. So there was that. So In the Heights, and of course it comes to us by Lin-Manuel Miranda, an adaptation of his 2005 Broadway hit. The original... hit by Lin-Manuel, and it's taken a couple of tries, not tries like officially, but years to get this movie off the ground. And so here we have In the Heights, directed by John M. Chu, director of such hits like well, no, this wasn't a hit, this was a disaster, Gem and the Holograms, but there was also Crazy Rich Asians, so there is that.
That's a step up.
And this is the official... Yeah, Step Up. That's right. This is the official description of the film on Letterboxd. The time has come. Apparently it has. The story of Usnavi, a bodega owner who has mixed feelings about closing his store and retiring to the Dominican Republic or staying in Washington Heights, as they say. That's the film. Alexis, I think it's appropriate to start off with you because you seem to know the most about this. I would wager in a heartbeat. So, because I know for a fact, I and Kyle, maybe that also includes David, didn't have any kind of exposure to the actual Broadway musical. We went into this cold. as far as story, as far as the music. So we're kind of, new to this. You seem to have much more of a history with this. So I'd like to start off with you and talk about that and your excitement for the movie. And then you can use that to talk about what you feel about this movie.
Well, the first thing that I because I was into Hamilton first before In the Heights. I'm a Broadway fan, but I'm not like huge, like to the point where I would know all the shows. I didn't know the story. I kind of knew a little bit of it. I knew that it was about Latinos, and that's kind of all that I knew. I knew the music. I'd listened to it before. But I didn't know the story. Mainly because I'd never seen it before. And the only thing that I had seen is plays at schools. Sort of kind of doing them, and then the Tony video that I sent you guys, the Tony Awards when they did that. I knew that people from In the Heights were in Hamilton, so that's also why I listened to it and stuff. But yeah, going into the movie, I didn't really know what was gonna happen. And I am a little biased. I already knew that I was gonna love it. So there's that.
Really?
But I feel even then, not that I had high expectations, but I feel they were exceeded. There was a lot of things that I didn't expect to be in the movie, just because I knew that the Broadway show was very kind of it's about a city, it's about people in this area and living their lives and stuff. So I think the thing that surprised me about the movie was the whimsical aspects. So that was, I don't know, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, there was this one time that you and Peter were talking about it, Alexis, and you were like, I don't know if he's a producer, if maybe he's a screenwriter. I was yelling, listening to you guys. I was like, what do you mean? He made it.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Alexis, for being a regular listener to the Red Spotlight podcast. I can't say the same for most of the rest of our panel, but thank you for listening to the conversation. And yeah, I mean, those are one of the moments where I'm just completely caught and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And, I had to contend with you. Of course, you are, Lin-Manuel's #1 fan. So I obviously, I mean, I'd only heard of this thing. I didn't really keep, I don't know, was this before I even saw Hamilton? Because if that was the case, then I knew even less
I don't think so. I think this was after Hamilton.
Oh, well then. Either way, I wasn't remotely interested at the time. So I don't know. I heard his name was attached to it, but the reason why I was unsure was because I knew he wasn't the person directing this. But yeah, you told me about that. I know you were upset. But I appreciate the feedback for that.
But so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then once obviously I got fully into Hamilton and I got fully into Lin-Manuel and his work, it is evident from anything that you read, anything that you see, that yes, Hamilton, he put a lot of himself in it, and that was a passion project, but this is his project. This is,
oh yeah,
this is this was it for him. You know,
this is the definition of a passion project, if there ever was one.
It's kind of almost a pseudo autobiography, kind of.
Yeah.
With him living in it, and so you could definitely feel this is. Well, Hamilton is he sees himself in Hamilton on all that stuff, but I feel this really put his stamp of oh, this is who he is, versus Alexander Hamilton, because that's a whole different entity in itself. And so when you're going into In the Heights, you feel more of like his sense of how he feels for New York City, how he feels for, and all that stuff. And it's kind of funny how like New York is constantly a theme throughout his works.
Yeah.
The greatest city in the world, and you get those feelings with In the Heights. It's all over the friggin' thing. The love for New York City is, just it's slapped there. Lin-Manuel Miranda might as well come out to the audience and slap your face and say New York. I mean, that's how New York it is. Were you
Yeah,
finished?
go ahead.
Okay, I thought that In the Heights was it took me to new heights. I really loved this, and it did help not knowing what happened before, or seeing the actual Broadway production or anything like that, or seeing any form of production from this. And it did help going in cold. All I knew is that it took place in New York City, in Washington Heights, and I knew that it's about dreamers, and that's it.
And Latinos.
And Latinos, pretty much, yeah. But that goes without saying. So I was like, okay, I get the gist of In the Heights, but I don't know In the Heights.
Yeah. That's how I feel like I knew a little bit more, but that's kind of how I went into it also.
Yeah. And so when this thing went around, especially when Anthony Ramos is rapping and all that stuff, like I hear Lin, but it's not Lin, so it's weird how that, that works out together. I think the cast is fantastic. I think that the whoever did all the choreography for this deserves a standing ovation all in itself, because like this really felt like, and Alexis and I were talking about it when we were heading home from the showing, is that it felt like it harkened back to the original picture shows of yore, and it felt like, you were watching a West Side Story. It felt like you were watching a Hello Dolly. It felt like you were watching like a classic thing, but it just felt like with the modern day twist, and it felt like that. And I appreciated that it felt like this, this epic, and I like that. I like the big bombastic numbers, like the 96,000. What is it? The Barrio,
yeah, I know what you're
Isn't it Celebration the Barrio? I don't know. I like that. I like the opening number of them in the street. It's awesome, fantastic, and you see the fantastical elements of this, and there are some like dreamlike sequences also scattered in this thing that I was like, oh wow, they're actually doing that. That was like, oh, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Here we go. I'll discuss that when we get to spoilers and all that shit. But overall, I think that this is a good thing. There's certain things that we're going to talk about later on about like controversies, the things that I think that this, I don't know, because I've had time to ruminate about it, and so like it goes hand in hand that I see the themes where they could have done something. But I think that overall, in terms of spectacle, going back into the movie theaters and seeing actual representation, Latin representation, which I think is seldom seen nowadays. And I think that was so wonderful to see and all that stuff. And I felt like I was like, oh, I'm actually watching these lives happen, and I guess that's testament to the movie and how this movie feels lived in, so I don't know. But overall, I liked it. I really liked it. I really liked the musical numbers. I really liked the things. I really liked Abuela. We'll get to her. But overall, I like it. Just it's good to be back.
David, what did you think?
I really liked it. The music was great and everything. Like Kyle said, the spectacle of it was really good. To me, though, like just the standout of the whole movie was the cinematography and the editing. Like, they were just on it, like one beat after the next, going one shot to the next and everything. But also, like, I just kind of like how creative they got on certain places. So the store that the main character works at, you know, you got small spaces in there. So how do you make dynamic shots, or like how do you make that scene kind of dynamic for seeing and everything? And so I like that they use reflections in the window door, and then when he's looking outside the street, you know, again, it's like you see him, but you see the reflection of the people and they're dancing. Like, they get super, super creative with this movie. And I think, and it really got me interested in, like, how was the original Broadway musical? Like, how much of it was it, like, actually translated into the movie, or like how much of it they just had to get creative, do something different with it? Because I can definitely see this one scene these two characters, it's like a little love song, but like you see like a shot of it in the trailer where they're literally standing on the side of a building. You know which one? Like that one I can definitely see in the Broadway musical somehow. So I'm curious, like, what was left out and what was put in.
Yeah, there were some notable changes of which have been criticized for various reasons, but Kyle and I did look into exactly what the changes, and there were, you know, substantial changes, some smaller, some bigger, and we can discuss that, although we don't want to, that's a lot of things to really cut through. It's a lot of different things that happen. Like with Hamilton, and just about everything that Lin does, this was just wonderful. I think maybe that's the best word to use. It's such a joy to watch this. And it's, I think to me, the reason why this is a great genre of filmmaking. I know if you don't like musicals, stay the fuck away from this. You're doing yourself no favor, because this is not going to, like, you know, hold your hand. Especially if it's the kind of musical where it's like, in this case, and that's Lin-Manuel style, where it's like we're talking, singing. The whole thing isn't that way. Unlike Hamilton, where it pretty much is entirely that way. There are some breaks in between the different numbers where you have, you know, natural flowing dialogue that happens. But just to get that out of the way with, because there are people that I know that are, you know, movie fans, but they just can't with this. And hey, that's you know, if you don't like it, you don't like it.
I want to take a moment to appreciate. I mean, it makes me so sad that this movie is being beaten down on, you know, by woke cancel culture.
It's being beaten down in different directions. Let me just be real about that, you know.
But the thing that, like, I want to take and appreciate about this work is that this motherfucker wrote it when he was 21, you know? That's fucking impressive. Like, what were we doing when we were 21?
Nowhere near that.
Yeah, he wrote this gargantuan fucking Broadway musical. You know, it started out, okay, the story, you know, I've become more educated over the weeks, okay? And like he started off when he was 21, and he wrote this as like a one act structure. But then when he was like, okay, Broadway was like, okay, make it a full thing. And then so he did, and like he ran it all the way until he was 28. Like, I think like for that span, and for this to, you know, take your first bite out of Broadway and to get a Tony Award right out the gate.
And then after that, like literally right after that was Hamilton.
Yeah, and then he was like, yeah. And what's so crazy is that he was writing that while he was finishing off In the Heights. Like, he literally was taking a plane ride, bought a book about Hamilton, and then he read it, got inspired, and he another hit on his hand in the making. You know, Lin-Manuel Miranda is shaping out to be one of the forefront geniuses of entertainment today. You know, because he's done theater. Now he's doing movies and all that stuff, and we'll see where his career takes it with Tick Tick Boom, which I'm very intrigued to see.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, which I'm really intrigued to see how that happens, because like he's on a fucking streak in terms of like quality, and In the Heights was freaking quality, even though it is John Chu's production. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda. Come on, guys, let's go. So it blows my mind that it just started off like that, and it's like it's a very humble beginning, but yet that humble beginning exploded in something substantially huge. So I really appreciate that.
No, I mean, I think all of us concur. It's he's an impressive person, just about, and he's created some wonderful things. And as far as In the Heights is concerned, I think this is a great movie. And it's the kind of movie that you really should go out of your way to go see. I was really struck to see how this kind of was ignored across the board in any kind of platform you can name, because this is kind of the joy that we've been missing the last couple of months, this last year, really. It reminds you, again, as I said, why this genre is great. And like what Kyle said, it is very much modern in the sense of its musical stylings, right? It's blending all these different genres the only way Lin-Manuel can. And it very much feels like it's evoking, the peak of musicals from classic Hollywood. You got big, splashy numbers. The dancing, the dance choreography is phenomenal. To say nothing, of course, of the songs, which are just terrific in every sense. It's a blend of vocals, a blend of freestyle rap, and all wrapped around what I would at least consider authentic music to the area or to the people that it's trying to, real capture there. For me, as I guess a self-described, but as someone that it's in the Latino community, I don't describe myself that way. I don't know what I was going for. It was a wrong choice of words. It's late, okay? I've had a bit of a day. I wrote 2 articles today. Anyway, I use a lot of words.
So hard.
It is. You try listening to a board of supervisors meeting and not fall asleep. Anyway, now I've lost. Okay.
As a Latino, I felt proud of this.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going for. And it was something new, because and a lot of the musicals that I can name are usually involved, in the Disney animated realm, right? So it's something new. I've not seen the original West Side Story, so we'll put that aside.
Me either. So I know that there's a lot of controversy with that one. And even Lin-Manuel says it. The only thing, or I think I sent it in that interview that I showed you guys, that like when he was in high school, he directed West Side Story, and he was like, that was it for me. Like, that's literally all I can do in Broadway. Right. And so
he literally went there and created new opportunities for people that look like him to have more roles in this industry, which is ultimately the goal of all, people of color in this industry that so discriminates against anybody who is not white, the reality of how it is. So it was nice to see a huge Hollywood spectacle like this with a majority brown cast, if not all brown cast. It was new. It was like, oh wow, this is actually nice. And of course the music being imbued in this just felt like, Hamilton, that's the thing that, Lin-Manuel is so known for, but if not just with the story, but the music, especially with this film, this is the heart of who Lin-Manuel is and where he came from ultimately. Yeah. And I think you can tell a little bit in it, because I want to reference this one moment in the movie. And David, Alexis, and I briefly touched on this in our discussion yesterday off air. And that would be how in the small glimpses you see Lin-Manuel in the movie, one of the songs, Piragua, you can just feel something different when he performs this, because we were saying to each other, I had no idea he could sing like this. He didn't sing like this in Hamilton. We were all criticizing him, saying like he was the weakest part of that entire ensemble. And yet he was belting out that song. And it's like, wow, where was this in Hamilton? Like, you really had, like, that's just passion. That's just love when you're singing from there, you know? I mean, you felt it, and like, whoa, it hit you when you heard it. Like, what? This is great.
Again, like, I have a, like, the story of Hamilton and his character didn't require belting and all that stuff, so I could
it was mostly rap.
That.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
The only time I got a glimpse of like how he could actually sing in his range was Mary Poppins Returns, but that was it.
That is true. I'm glad you pointed out. Okay, because like, yeah, Hamilton is mostly rapping. There are like a lot of numbers that are more classical Broadway, but they're not his. Like the character doesn't do those songs. It goes to other performers like Jonathan Groff and Philippa Sue and Christopher Jackson. They have big moments. What's his name? Leslie Odom Jr.
Yeah.
They have the big like musical moments in that. But Lin-Manuel is he's just rapping basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I guess you're right, Kyle. That's a good observation. I didn't think of it. Yeah, maybe Mary Poppins Returns is the most you've heard him sing. Maybe
like actually
at this
sing.
point?
But this is the only time, like, that was the only time you actually got to hear him actually sing without, just either singing, like, I'll never be satisfied, when it came to Hamilton, you have that. But then also you have, but with this, it was a cameo. Come on. You're Lin-Manuel Miranda in your own freaking project, and you're not gonna go all out there, And this is like one of the more like emotionally not uplifting, but like the relief of the story because like of the other things that happen with the story. But like this is where like you get to see it, and the look on the passengers on the bus when he's just like doing his thing, just like it was hilarious. Just knowing the fact that it was Lin-Manuel Miranda, Alexis and I laughed our asses off just
every time he was on the screen.
It's just the fact that it's Lin, being Lin and him doing his whole thing, so I actually like that. Did you guys did you see the end credits?
Yeah.
Alexis Soto, did you see the end credits?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so there was more Lin-Manuel Miranda at the end credits. And the Mr. Softy, his truck, just to let you know, Mr. Softy's truck, it stops working. It stops working, and all the ice cream is melting and all that stuff. So they're like, oh, there's Mr. Pirawa, over here. And he was like, okay, I got, Mr. Softy, I got your customers now. And so then he gave him Christopher Jackson a Pirawa, and it was nice. It was a nice little scene. It's just nice seeing Christopher Jackson and Lin, just on a frame together again. So it's just nice.
Just to wrap up what I thought, look, the film I think overall is great, and it's just so full of joy, and it's also, I think, as far as a craft perspective, at the top. You got an amazing cast. Honestly, you'd be hard pressed to find a weak link here. Everyone's amazing in this, honestly, and for me, I really enjoyed. In particular, oh my goodness, I really should have looked up the name of this. Well, I have it right here. I really enjoyed Leslie Grace as Nina Rosario, and then her father, played by Jimmy Smits, Kevin Rosario. I was really surprised by Corey Hawkins, Benny, who I've only seen before in Walking Dead years ago, and then also in Straight Outta Compton. He was very good in Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
And then also, to me, the one that really stole the show was Olga Meredes. 65-year-old Olga Meredes, who actually played this role for over 10 years on Broadway, who was kind of, when I saw the interviews, I'm like, wait a minute, you're not 85? because you were really convincing as an 85-year-old. I guess that's the range I guess you were going for in the film. But she was terrific overall.
This kind of casting, it reminded me of when they brought Colm Wilkinson, who played Jean Valjean in the original Broadway production of Les Mis. And they casted him as the bishop in the Hugh Jackman film.
Well, aren't you forgetting a bigger one? Samantha Barks. Well, but the thing is that, you know, she's not Samantha Barks. She was in it in Les Mis much later. She wasn't
Original cast.
She's not a legacy cast.
I was saying that it's she was on Broadway, right? She was part of one of the runs of Les Mis. And it's very rare for any of them to transfer over into the movie. I mean, we're going to see a version of this with Dear Evan Hansen later this year where Ben Platt was transferred over, but a lot of the cast, I don't think, from the show made it onto the movie. Which I'm looking forward to, although we'll see how it goes, because that wig is really not doing it for me, I'll tell you that.
He's a great singer. Like,
he's a great singer.
Obviously, for a reason. Seriously. He was casted in the original for a reason. But... He
won the Emmy that year, I believe, for Dear Evan Hansen. Not the Emmy, excuse me, the Tony. The Tony, not the fucking Emmy. Anyway, I would say, go see this. Please go see this. This is what movies are made for. This is what movies are made of. Go see it. All right. Now let's have a free-flowing discussion. Anybody can mention whatever the fuck they want to say.
I mean, I feel like we should go at least talk about the cast, because that's kind of what the movie's about.
Yeah, I kind of let that off a little bit. Sure, I mean, we can. That's kind of the main thing. Go ahead, Alexis. Tell us about your favorites.
My favorites were Nina, Uznavi.
Oh, yeah.
Benny.
By the way, that's a great name.
I died in that scene when they were like, remember how you got your name? And honestly, like, even that, like, okay, I think I'll skip the characters. I love all of them.
You were literally about to name them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Like a fucking Mortal Kombat announcer.
No, it's just, you literally went like, yeah, Nina, Benny, Uznavi. It's just like, I thought you were going to go.
Okay, my least favorite is Vanessa.
Benny. Vanessa.
Yeah, my least favorite was Vanessa. But anyways, I think I want to talk about, or go back to that conversation that Alexis was saying, that this movie felt very, very authentic. And we were talking about this yesterday. I absolutely love that. I feel like, and I think this is valid, most of the time, if not all the time, when Latinos are being represented in any movies, it's very, very stereotyped. You know, you have the border crossing, you have the freaking low voice and like you have the
how'd that go again?
What's it called? Like the hard-headed, like women's like being sexualized, like just different things like that, right? But this one felt very, very authentic. You can
don't forget the color coding. The color grading of
the
like
sepia
yellow
or whatever the fuck it's called. But yeah, I think the few things that I noticed that I was like, oh, okay, like this is like legit. One has to be the name. How many times have I heard my mom or my family members that only talk Spanish saying English words the wrong way?
I mean, it's a daily occurrence for me. So, I mean, that's
Walmart. My mom cannot say Walmart. She works at Walmart. I send her videos all the time of other people recording their parents, like, talking or, like, saying a word, and it's like, no, that's not how you say it. I love that. That was, I think, like, one of my favorite things.
Just today, actually.
Oh my god, what'd she do?
Mom was telling me like how to cook something, and I was like, and I said the word butter, like that's an ingredient, and she's like, yeah, butter, or like I can't remember exactly how she
like
said it.
weird, yeah.
Yeah, but I was just like,
And like I do it too. Like I do it in Spanish too, and she makes fun of me. So it's like, you know. But yeah, I absolutely love that. And then the other thing that I also really enjoyed, when they show the food that they're making and the small pots and pans, and it's not this like grand, like a bunch of food. No, like literally that's not, like, it's such a small detail that I was like, yes, like it's so cool to see that. Like, you know, I don't know, like it wasn't exaggerated. It's literally how it is.
It's literally what we do. Like the scene you're talking about was, I just mentioned her, Leslie Grace, who played Nina, when she's coming back home in the beginning of the movie and she's visiting, you know, Abuela. And she sees that obviously, you know, she's cooking to celebrate her homecoming for that week and everything. And she just walks into the kitchen and she lifts up the pot and sees a stew brewing and she just smells it. And it's like, yeah, we've all done that. Mm-hmm. We've all gone. And that's kind of the first thing you do when you visit your grandparents' place or your parents' place. Like, yeah, you open up the pot and you smell what they're cooking. And it looked real.
Oh, so good. And it's not freaking tamales and shit.
I could smell the food that was on the thing. Like I wanted Mexican after that. Oh, look, going back to what you guys were saying, like my stepdad, he's Hispanic, and I've caught him a couple of times saying Walmarts.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I loved it. I don't know. I think that's just something that I really enjoyed about the movie. I don't know how it's translated in the musical because I've never seen it, but I'm sure that because Lin is behind it, and because obviously, like, he'd maybe not have had the last say, but he did have a lot of input, and because this movie was created by a lot of people of color, I'm sure that that's why the end product was the way that it is. And I loved it.
I want to touch on something real quick, unless anyone had anything say about the authenticity is absolutely correct. But since we're in the issue in terms of cast members, Alexis, you actually mentioned something that I thought I was going to be alone in, but I think you kind of captured my sentiments exactly when you mentioned the Vanessa character. I think Melissa Barrera is a terrific performer.
Oh, yeah, she was great.
And she's got a great voice on her. But if there is a weak link from, I don't know if you would chalk it up to a writing aspect or just from a lack of chemistry, I really couldn't get all that personally invested in the supposed romance between Vanessa and Usnavi. I liked Usnavi a lot. I think Ramos was great. But I didn't really get anything of a spark between Ramos and Barrera here, which is a shame. And repeatedly, I found myself just caring the least about Vanessa. I don't know if anybody else felt the same way.
I felt the same. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think they just kind of hit a little bit too hard on, like, the awkward relationship that they were trying to go for. Like, Usnavi is like constantly nervous around her, but it's like, you know, after, you know, he's finally getting a date with her, you know, he could have been a little bit more confident or just like be a little bit more playful with each other and everything, and then that might have gotten a bit more invested. But yeah, actually I do agree with both of you. It's just like she was a bit of the weak link, I guess you can say. And yeah, it could have been from a writing perspective.
I also don't think that the performers were all that great together on screen, and particularly Barrera and Ramos. Together,
I'm not sure. I do think that they're like, I think that Benny and Nina's relationship was better. Mm-hmm. I do think that the awkwardness between Usnavi and Vanessa was a little bit too much, but I that's not like why I don't like her. I don't like her like as a character. I don't like that she's very like negative about everything. And
That's her role that she was given to, I think, from a creative standpoint.
yeah, I don't know. I
get
like it's kind of shoved down her like our throats a lot. That like no, and then I also saw because I couldn't quite put into words like why I didn't like her, and then I saw this video of like I don't remember who it was, but they kind of said that she was like a pick-me girl. And that, like, she wanted to leave because she felt, like, all this pressure. Or, not pressure, like, she just didn't enjoy her time there. But then when Uznavi wants to leave, she's like, no, don't leave. And it's like, but you wanted to leave. I don't know. I just, like, as a character, like, if I met this person, like, in real life, I wouldn't like her.
Now with Nina and Benny, that is where basically the romantic fireworks were at, so to speak. But it wasn't like it's not like they were like lovey-dovey from most of the movie. They really weren't until the end of the movie because like it's a really not complicated relationship, but they have a lot of in particular with
on stage. It's hella complicated though. Holy shit. Oh god.
Okay, Kyle, I'm gonna need you to hang up and call back in because
like
David and Alexis are freaked out.
You sound like a
There is
demon.
there is a static affect on your microphone that happens inadvertently for no and he hung up. Anyway, he'll call back in, but there was an issue with the audio and all of us are kind of scared because it sounds like he was possessed in that instance. So it happens inadvertently. Kyle, are you back? Can you talk and make sure that we're okay here?
Hi, how are you? Is it still
Okay,
there?
no, it's still there. The static is still very much there, and I have no explanation for why that's happening.
Oh wow.
Talk?
Did it stop? Can you
Kyle,
speak?
talk.
Hi.
Yeah,
Okay,
it stopped.
Okay, I guess it stopped. Okay. Oh boy, that was scary.
And then
anyway.
you were talking like super slow too. And then you laughed and it
Because I was
literally
like,
sounded
what's-
like, ha.
That's just the way I laugh. I know. Jesus.
Anyway, I liked Nina's story. I appreciated what they were doing with her, which I thought was on a much more, I don't know, adult level than what I think the stuff that was happening with Vanessa. I mean, if you're going to compare that.
Yeah.
There was a lot to her story that kind of really resonated with me.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
the idea that, you know, when you leave home and you have this feeling of homesickness and you're out in this strange environment and there's nothing around you that, you know, you can latch onto to kind of like get through it at least in the beginning. And then when you come back, you kind of like, man, I really miss this place and I kind of don't want to leave. And then another level with her story, and that is she felt very much alienated / ostracized by some very condescending people in her orbit in this new Ivy League school that she's at. And I can personally attest to, yeah, these kind of things do happen. Not in the ways that she was describing her experiences. They sounded a little bit more extreme, at least with what I've encountered. But when she was, you know, detailing the things that she's experienced, like when she was attending, I think, some kind of dinner and they mistook her for being a waitress, I feel that. I've been there. It's not fun. Mm-hmm. And so that I made me really connect with her. And then also having all this weight on her shoulders, when she feels like the whole community has these high expectations of her, you know, in the song, like, no me preocupo por ella, like, I don't worry for her. Like, we know when those expectations are placed on us, they're kind of crushing, they're kind of suffocating. When you're having an interpersonal crisis, it doesn't make things any easier. A lot of what she went through really kind of spoke to me. And I thought it was a terrific performance by Leslie Grace. And she's got a great voice too.
Mm-hmm. It was really good. I really liked her story. I felt like a lot of people can relate to it. And I loved her and Benny's relationship. the introduction to Benny, that was one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, that was good.
And even, like, Benny himself, like, supporting her, and, like, they do mention... I know that the Broadway version is a lot different when it comes to their relationship, but, like, I like how in this one, like, they do mention, like, they broke up because they were gonna be far away and stuff like that, but in the end, like, he's fully supportive of whatever she wants to do, and, like, he wants her to, like, you know, do all of these things that she has in mind. And then also, like, her relationship with her dad is also very, very relatable, and how he basically wants her to do all this stuff that he never did, and he doesn't even know what that is, because that's, like, the life that he lives now is all that he knows. I love that they mention that, or kind of, like, do something with that. And I don't know, I love Mimi.
Kyle, you wanted to say something about this?
I think, okay, because this is a thing that I think can resonate with any ethnicity of any kind, is I think generational expectations, I think, really are a heavy hand in what In the Heights is, and I think that's like the grand statement of, like, breaking away from the generational expectations. I think that is the most important key part of where, you know, Usnavi has his, you know, comeuppance, you know, and his epiphany at the end, that I think that where he breaks free from, like, all that stuff. And I think that with the exclusion of different things that happen in the musical, in the Broadway musical, like how Mr. What's his name? Mr. Rosario is very anti Benny and Nina because of Benny's ethnicity. I think that it should have stayed in the musical, just to show that generational divide between Mr. Rosario and Nina. I think that would have been a lot more stronger, I feel, to keep that story point in there, and just to show that, you know, these kids, you know, Vanessa, Nina, Sunny, Benny, and Usnavi are trying to break free from the generational expectations that Abuela and Mr. Rosario have on these kids, you know. And I think that's a great story point, and I think that right there should have been the heart of the story, I feel. So I feel like the presentation that they have, I think was more, and also, like, Nina's story in the original Broadway musical, it was more of, like, she didn't want that burden to, you know, reflect upon her father, because she wanted to make it on her own. And so she was taking up 5 jobs, but because she was taking up 5 jobs to pay for her tuition, because we know college is a bitch, you know, to pay for, she was taking up 5 jobs and all that stuff. But because of that, she didn't have time for her own schoolwork that she was actually working for. And so, like, her goals and everything became lost in translation. And, like, I think that would have been an interesting thing to look at, you know. There would be another, like, and so I think that there's definitely moments that I think that they could have, like, worked in and give the plot a little bit more meat, because I feel like this movie, in terms of, like, its themes, while being relatable, yes, I see that it might have played a little bit too safe with what it was saying, especially with generational divides. I think that would have been an interesting thing, and give the piece a little bit more meat. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. I mean, I hear people say that, and that's fair. I can't say I feel the same. I didn't feel it was anything lacking in any of that relationship, quite frankly. I don't know if I would have preferred if they had gone that route with Jimmy Smits being that extreme. Something about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't
don't
to see him in that regard.
I like what they did. I mean, to me, honestly, like, it kind of doesn't make a difference because regardless, we still have both versions. And if you
That's
really
right.
want to see that, go watch the Broadway musical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure Lynn would appreciate that.
Exactly. But I also feel like I understand why they took it out because keep in mind, Broadway musicals are usually like 4 hours.
Yeah. There's a lot that was taken out. And I don't know if part of the rationale for removing that element was, this was written in 2005. This is a movie in 2021. I don't know if, I'm going to assume some attitudes hopefully have changed in these respective communities in terms of race since 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Hope.
Well, the thing though is that
Hopefully,
the most
right?
important
Yeah.
part is because Lexa said, Moreno said, Broadway musicals are usually like 4 hours long and everything, so like they had to like remove a whole lot of stuff from that to make it in. I mean, the movie is already almost 2.5 hours long. Like, you know,
Yeah.
That's a long
that's a
movie.
long
Yeah.
movie already, and like already a lot to cut down.
Yeah, and like keeping in mind, like you're focusing not on one relationship, not on two relationships. It's a whole cast that you're trying to focus on, that you're trying to tell these stories. And, you know,
And
that one was just not the one that they wanted to tell.
and
You know what I mean?
I was trying to say, like, the thing about this movie is that it is all about, I guess, like loving your community in a way or something like that, or like at the very least, like feeling. How to explain it?
Home is nothing to be ashamed of.
Home is nothing to. Yeah, that's actually really good. Home is nothing to be ashamed of, and like in a way, like you're always going to be a part of it. You want to still be a part of it, but do out and do other things and all that. And so that generational gap kind of, I mean, to me at least, doesn't
To
really
me,
fit.
I feel like that's not what they were trying to say. I think it was more about, in a way, about like immigrants and that relationship and how it affects their families. I think that was more of the story that they wanted to tell rather than the generational gap. At least from what I took of it.
Yeah, I saw that too.
This may be kind of a cop out, granted, but like I said, I think I alluded to before, I would just be bummed out if, you know, oh yeah, well, Jamie Smith is kind of a racist now because he doesn't like, you know, Benny, who's black, to date his daughter, and like I didn't need to see that. I didn't need that to be a part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, I just like, you know what, my patience for that kind of stuff, I've seen it already. Let's just move on. That's where I come at it. Like, okay, but anyway. Because it's just so, yeah. Did we all, because it was mentioned right now, did any of us have any issues in terms of pacing or length of the film? Do we feel it was too long, too short?
No, I think it was perfectly paced.
Towards?
I don't think so.
Well, I
I feel like the ending might have been a little bit like...
Abrupt?
no.
Yeah,
Long?
I don't know. It felt a little weird. Like, I'm not, like, mad at it or anything, but it, like, towards the end, like, once the, like, after Abuela happens,
Yeah.
it felt a little bit weird.
To me, towards the end, it did go a little bit too long because I thought the story was going to end once the blackout ended. Like once the lights went on, I thought we were gonna end the movie right there. Like, hey, like we made it through this or something, and like we're gonna get some happy endings from everyone, and that's it. But like it kept going on and on.
Yeah,
So,
it felt like 5 different endings.
yeah, that's basically it.
Your Return of the King.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. One of the elements that was heavily criticized for feeling like it just had somewhat of an unnatural presence was the DACA thing or the dreamer situation, like the quote unquote dreamers. I I liked what it did for, at least in the scene, I liked what it did for Nina and then also for Sunny. But I can understand where some say like it just felt like that was kind of shoehorned in because of the times that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it was a detriment to the movie adding that in because it dates it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sure, but like immigrants, how long have they've been a thing and they're still getting crapped on? I mean, it's a give and take in particular. I mean, in terms of the DACA thing, I get you. You can run the risk of dating yourself, but
I mean, either way, though, that what's trying to show though is the struggles that like any undocumented people are going through. You know, so I think that's kind of what the most important part of that scene is going to show that.
I feel like the impact that I was trying to go for with Sunny's story specifically, I feel like it landed.
I feel so as well. But to me, the one that really stole the show was Olga Meredes as Abuela Claudia. Any scene she's in, it just reminds you of that grandma we've all had in our lives. I didn't see that amazing sequence coming. Pacencia Y Fe.
Same.
That's where.
That has to be one of the.
That's what I said. The editing, fucking great. Oh my god.
Yeah. Though the the staging in and of itself was grand, obviously, but the song, the performance. I mean, she was going all in. Like that has to be one of the best musical performances I've ever seen. Just from an emotional standpoint. I mean, I kind of saw it coming. What they were, it is emotional. It's like, okay, should I stay or should I go? Basically, what am I supposed to do at this? And
I thought she was gonna stay. And when she did it, I was like, oh shit, it's happening.
She died of a fucking heat stroke. Sad way to go. Oh, I listened to if you don't know about this podcast, it's called Musical Splaining with Lindsay Ellis and Gavatarian. And she was raised in New York, and she liked the fact that the tunnel that she was in wasn't painted, because it's usually depicted as a very sleazy area, and how like they didn't depict it. They glamified it, they made it, she appreciated that fact. So I thought that was really interesting as well.
And one would hope the people who are from that area would appreciate that as well on some level. With Olga Meredes, I'll just say, and I've already seen the online campaign start for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars next year. So let's not forget this performance when we're at the show. Since it is a musical, and if you can name from the soundtrack, do you have a favorite song, favorite two?
I think it had to be hers.
6,000.
Pacencia Y Fe?
It's just...
That's my favorite, yeah.
I mean, again, like I said, the editing is just, like, they fucking got it. I love it. That switch with the people inside the train to, like, when they have different clothes and everything, and then, like, you're going through the entire subway, and then, it's minor, but, like, I love it when those yellow lights were, like, coming down on the ceiling, and then she, like, grabs it, and then you're back in the train and everything, and then at that ending of the song where she like gives that big Pacencia Y Fe ending and all that, like it hits you every time, and when you know what's happening.
Even like the words of the song, like when she goes like, I worked and I worked and I worked, and jeez, it's so good.
The days turned to weeks and the weeks turned into years, and here I stay. I know it's an amazing song. Kyle brought it up at the very beginning. He couldn't name it all the way. It's called Carnaval del Barrio.
Oh my god,
that was an amazing one as well.
I got so emotional during that one. It's so good.
It's great. It's like I love the block patch, but where I was like, oh, okay, I'm in it, was 96,000. I absolutely,
that was nice.
like the vivid colors. I felt like I was watching a Grand Ole musical. You know, if the intro number in the Heights didn't sell that point enough, 96,000 did. And I love like how they use like the pool, the water, you know, and how they use like this whole entire grand thing. And I feel like I felt the sense of community, you know, for the first time when I saw that sequence, and I was like, okay, this is what the movie's trying to tell me, you know. So I feel like the movie started at 96,000.
Yeah, real quick, since I've already said how much I loved Leslie Grace, Breathe, and then also with Corey Hawkins, When the Sun Goes Down, great set pieces, great songs. Let's not also forget maybe the most hysterical sequence or song in the movie, No Me Diga, primarily sung by Daphne Rubin Vega, who plays Daniela, who is the one that owns the salon in the neighborhood. So she was great as well, you know.
Yeah,
but I guess Kyle's favorite is Piragua.
Piragua. It's a very catchy tune. It's very catchy. I like it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this controversy then. So the last couple of days, this discourse has blown up with many impassioned voices going online to criticize the film for not featuring enough Afro-Latino actors or Afro-Latino anything really in the movie. So much so that Lin-Manuel Miranda went on social media to address this controversy and issue a formal apology for not being more sensitive or aware to this, and promised to do better. If you want to read the statement, it's there if you want to read it. Rita Moreno recently went on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert to push back against this, saying that she feels you can never do right and that they're attacking the wrong person. So
my cousin,
it's kind of a mess. So in layman's terms, that's where we are, and it's kind of completely sucked all the air out of the room when it comes to discussing the movie. Unfortunately, it's brought this into a negative light. But let's see how we feel. What do you guys think?
Hold on, pause. Can I move really quick because I'm really uncomfortable? Sorry.
Oh, you mean physically uncomfortable? Yeah. Okay, you're moving. I thought you meant like the subject matter is like
no.
grossing you out.
I mean, you're not wrong. Hold on.
Kyle, you want to start off?
Okay, I felt like I had a sneeze, but I didn't. So, so I think that this is a good issue. Like it is a good issue because like there are more, you know, colors under different people's umbrellas and rainbows and all that stuff that ethnically, like, you know, I am Filipino. I may not look like it. I look like you're, you know, garden variety white guy, but I
don't think you do. I don't know why you say that.
I know. I feel like you really do. I mean, I feel like you do look Filipino. So I'm trying to say, not the garden version.
But I mean, if
okay, but like a lot of people don't think of me as Filipino. They usually think I'm either of something else other than, you know, than what I am. Mm-hmm. So, but there are people like my sisters. They look more ethnically appropriate. You know, you have that, you know, that spectrum right there, and I could definitely see where a lot of people might not feel that way, you know, because they're, you know, and, you know, color of your skin matters, you know, nowadays. You know, look at Black Panther. That blew up because a lot of people were seeing themselves in a superhero film for the first time, you know, and you got this bit of, you know, of where this, you know, goes in. However, I think that this controversy has been blown out of proportion a little bit, because like not every day you get just a Latino-based big epic movie like this.
And again, an authentic one.
Yeah, because usually, you have Mayans on FX, and the whole entire thing is like painting Mexicans as criminals, and you have the sepia toned color grading. You don't have it's not a glamorized thing. You have a glamorized community like that's lit, and you literally have a Carnaval de Barrio, and it's it is this like this celebration of Latin culture that you just don't get, and so I feel like I think instead of criticizing this, because criticizing this and making it a bit of a controversy and stink, it might give incentive to studios to not even try again because of that.
That's the danger. That's the danger ultimately. I want to just say this off the bat before we go at it directly. In all seriousness, because I feel like we all have issues with this line of criticism, but regardless of that, when a group of, in particular a community of color has a critique, it should be taken seriously. It should be listened to, no matter how we feel ultimately, how it's going to be interpreted. And obviously we feel that there's some issues in terms of how they're going about doing it, but no matter how they go about doing it, there is a point to be made. And the fact that this is a conversation being had is ultimately for, I think, the betterment of all of us as a society to recognize and to remind this issue for the next time a movie like this that is speaking to this particular community can get it right the next time. So off the bat, to have that settled.
Yeah, I agree. Like, everything that these people are saying is valid, and I don't think any of us are disagreeing or say that it's
quite frankly
true.
Maybe even in a position to say that it's not true, because we don't really belong to the community.
I
guess the
that's
Afro-Latino
something that like me and
community,
David were talking about. Like, I can't say anything or can't disagree with you because I am not them. I don't and will never have that experience that these people are having. But I also do agree with why are people attacking something good and at least some progress in the much progress that we need to happen already. How my cousin Rita Moreno said, I feel like the wrong person is being attacked. The wrong thing is being attacked. Because if you shut it down right away, we won't get this again. Or it'll be harder than it was before to get this again.
This was supposed to be a celebration for Latinos. And it seems as if that's being completely overshadowed by many things, right? In particular, by this criticism. And that's kind of where, I guess we're on the part of some of us here feel a little bit of that frustration. David, you wanted to say? I'm sorry if I cut you off. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like we said this many times, but I'm just going to say it again. But like you said, we're not disagreeing with some of the criticisms people are saying and everything. And for me, like, should they have casted more Afro-Latino people in the movie? Sure, why not?
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that. But this other criticism was that they took out the storyline of Nina's father being like racist towards Benny, and everything, and like, okay, fine, it was in the original Broadway. They could have added in, but like, the thing though is that you can't blame Lynn and the other writers or like the other people working on this for wanting a movie that embraces Latin culture. Like, that's the thing that people need to see, is that they wanted to embrace Latin culture. So like, you can't really blame them when they kind of like make these little mistakes that I know it's a big deal for a lot of people, but like,
I was gonna say the point being is intent never seems to matter when these kind of discussions come up, right? Because clearly, if you're familiar with Lin-Manuel Miranda, you know the intent was to embrace diversity, was to break that ceiling, right? This is what Rita Moreno said here, that this is the man who literally has brought Latino-ness and Puerto Ricanness to America. I couldn't do it. Rita Moreno says, 89-year-old Rita Moreno couldn't. She says, I couldn't do it. I would love to say that I did, but I couldn't. Lin-Manuel has done that really single-handedly.
Mm-hmm.
So intent matters in any situation. This is a person who is trying to do what he's always been doing, that has created these opportunities. And so you have to be a little bit understanding of those that push back and say, what you're saying may be valid, but perhaps Lin isn't the person to be attacking for this. Like, this is the person who, maybe you're right. Maybe he is at fault unconsciously on some level of it, but intent needs to count for something, damn it.
The thing that I think like really boggles me is that, you know, that they're, you know, going after Lin-Manuel Miranda when they brought, you know, a Latin, you know, story to, you know, to light in this way, that nobody is fucking watching. Point to the people, paint to the fucking people who's not paying a ticket to go watch it. You know, throw that in the mix, you know, throw
how we said at the beginning,
sorry,
it's just making it harder for something like this to be made again. Like, you're already pushing back on something that's being pushed back unintentionally.
Already.
Yes.
You know, and, you know, blame the infrastructure of Hollywood that it's taken this long for this kind of movie to exist. You know, instead of pointing at Lin-Manuel Miranda and all that stuff, because you know what? I think that this is where like cancel culture and all that stuff is really taking its hand on how different things are being perceived, you know. And with this whole cancel culture thing, I think that it really needs to be stated. You're doing more damage than good by being the woke police, you know. And so I think that something's definitely got to give in the infrastructure of Hollywood, you know, for sure. But by this, yes, David.
He wasn't raising his hand. He was just like, he was just touching his hair.
I thought he was raising his hand. I'm like, yes. Okay. All right.
Sorry.
But yeah, like the whole entire infrastructure of freaking Hollywood needs to change. Attack that. Not Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is giving you a story and a voice, you know, in the first place, you know.
David, you're next.
Don't be mad. Oh. Yes.
No, Kyle, sorry. I meant to say finish your point, and then David's next. I have to mediate this. Go ahead.
David, go on. I'm pretty much done.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, I want to go. When you said, like, you know, blame the infrastructure and all that, and like I do agree with you. The thing though is that, and I've heard this from other people of color that I follow on social media and everything, but like whenever they get asked, like, oh, what do you think of the lack of diversity in certain movies? Their answer is always the same: is that if you're disappointed at the lack of diversity, go and make your own shit. Okay,
and that's literally what Lin-Manuel did.
That's exactly what he's doing. But again, Kyle, you're mentioning like blame the infrastructure. The thing though is, yeah, blame them, but you're trying to rely on them to make more diverse movies when like the people working in there are white. Like, you know, and again, like Lin-Manuel, a person of color, you know, you're complaining that he didn't add more Afro-Latino and actors in this movie. Imagine like the white people running this infrastructure of Hollywood trying to do that. Like, it's not gonna work.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It creates this impression. No, we hear you loud and clear. It creates this impression that Lin and by extension director John Chu went out of their way to avoid casting Afro-Latino actors. Like, I don't think you know these people. That's not what they do.
Like Crazy Rich okay, first of all, like tentpole, like John Chu, him making 2 tentpole films with underrepresented casts, Crazy Rich Asians, first of all, and then In the Heights, following. I think it's just misguided freaking anger that I feel. It's just people want a target to shoot, and they're not getting it, And so they're like, oh, who made the movies? Who made the movie? Oh, this is Lynn's project. Okay, let's set up the targets and fire. And I feel like, like that, it shouldn't be the case, and also, again, like I've been saying, you pay for what you see with the box office, that's the voting poll in this. The Hollywood, believe it or not, is a democracy. It is, whether you like it or not, it is a democracy. And you vote in the voting booth is the box office, and depending on what you pay for, but depending on like what you invest your money in, we're probably going to get more Marvel movies because that's all people seem to watch these days. But if you want to see more movies like this, you go into a theater and you shell out your cash and go see something like this. Because I think this movie is, despite my issues, despite, any issue you might have, these kind of movies need to be fucking seen.
We're running short on time. We want to finish this off real quick because we have another podcast to record. But since you mentioned it, I want to just get this out of the way with the actual numbers of what happened because they were stunning. Nobody really saw it coming, and that is with the box office, right? So In the Heights, its first opening weekend, was ultimately a disappointment, even in the pandemic estimates, only making about $11.4 million, well below the $20 million that it was expected to do. And even oh boy, let's compare, right, other Warner Brothers movies just this year in the pandemic era to what In the Heights did. So from the biggest to the smallest one, Godzilla vs. Kong had a $31.6 million opening weekend. Conjuring 3 had 24. Mortal Kombat had 23. 84, Wonder Woman, when the pandemic had no vaccines out there, by the way, was 16.7. Tom and Jerry in February or March was 14, had a bigger opening. And all of these movies had HBO Max component day and date releases within the Heights. Samba TV, which is an analytics we frequently report on here, says that only 693,000 households watched In the Heights during its first weekend, which is lower than Conjuring 3 that had 1.6 million views, Mortal Kombat that had 4 million views, even a movie that no one ever even heard of that had Angelina Jolie last month had more viewers with 1.2 million. So as far as like blaming HBO Max, sure, maybe some of it. And we're also in a pandemic and only 76% of theaters are open. And, there are a bunch of reasons to blame for what happened.
Not full capacity.
But if we're if we're looking at just the pandemic numbers, like something bad happened here where nobody really wanted to see this unless you were part of the fan base. Like what happened? I have no idea. Were people just not in the mood to see a musical?
I don't think marketing did it any favors because it was selling the movie solely based on your fanship with Hamilton.
That's fair, but if you haven't seen the figure, Warner Brothers dumped a lot of money promoting this, though. Mm-hmm. They really were marketing this movie like shit. Like honestly, I went to Universal City a few weeks ago. There were 1,000 billboards left and right. For In the Heights. Like they were trying. Regardless, if you thought the trailers were insufficient to what it was selling, that's one thing. But the studio was pouring a lot of money to sell this movie.
But a lot of people didn't know what this movie was, It was just like, what is this? I mean, with the Marvel movie, you'll get, again, comparing, apples and oranges. But with the Marvel movie, it's cookie cutter, superheroes fighting. That's what people are into. it could sell tickets up the
Like
wazoo.
a lot of the movies that you just mentioned are things that people already
They're franchises. Yeah, they're names. Even Cruella had a $24 million opening weekend. And then on Disney Plus, Samba TV said it made an additional $20 million through the Premier Access. So it's like, we have evidence that, okay, movies seemingly can make change on box office and streaming. And who knows if this is a permanent like thing going from now on, but at the moment, this is how things are. But in this instance, based on these numbers, In the Heights underperformed both in theaters and on streaming. And that suggests an even deeper issue than maybe could have even been solved here. What that is, I have no clue. The movie's great. I mean, you got a big name behind it. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda, you got Crazy Rich Asians director John Chu. It's like you got this, I guess because there were no movie stars, quote unquote, in the movie. Like
I have a feeling that you have to be in the know-how, you know, because a lot of people I would just talk to my mom and dad and just like discuss like, oh, it's a Lin-Manuel Miranda, you know, project, and they'll be like, who? John M. Chu. Who? You know, so like to us, it doesn't make sense because they don't know these names, you know, despite, you know, Hamilton and all that stuff. I might have heard their children talking about it once in a while, but like they don't really know what it is. So that's not a really good drawback on what, you know, what you're selling the movie on. You know, Spielberg with West Side Story, when his movie comes out, which is already nobody's seen it and it's already getting canceled. Oh
my god, did you see that? Did you see what I shared with you guys before we started? Like there's already apparently people who are saying cancel West Side Story.
Yeah, which is absurd.
Months
but
before it's even out.
That movie will sell tickets because you got Spielberg. Despite whoever's in it, it's a Spielberg movie and people will pay to watch it.
It's also a name, too. It is a remake of a classic musical. You think that would generate some interest, you know?
Yeah. Versus In the Heights, it was that thing that you heard once in drama school and, you know, and that's pretty much it. Now, if Hamilton came up to the big screen, now that will be a completely different story.
Yeah, I'm curious to see then how Dear Evan Hansen performs, because that you'd think would be more niche. You know?
Oh,
so
I love the on-call music.
Yes,
You'll be back.
Little Easter egg.
Yeah, I love that. It was great.
I don't know.
Anyone have anything else to say in terms of this discussion, in terms of how they feel about the movie? We're going to wrap it up right now.
I'm just sad. I told Alexis
You're supposed to be happy.
I told Alexis this yesterday. I was just like, because I literally read Lynn's apology during the credits of the movie. And so I was so happy, and as soon as I saw that, I died. And I just came out and I was like, this is literally why we cannot have nice things. And it's just very upsetting, and I hate that people are like this. And it just sucks.
Honestly, Alexis, there's nothing worse than coming out of a movie and being so like high and happy, and then like reading something about it, and then it just crashes down.
It's like
but the movie's really good. Go watch it.
It's like how the ride home from Invisible Man was so fun because yeah, you know. You remember.
Well, no offense, Kyle, but bigger dreams were killed that night than what you feel about a movie. Like, I'm sorry, not sorry about that. You know. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, David. Thank you, Alexis, for being here. Make sure to catch us back with the Fantasy Fair podcast talking about Cruella and Avengers Campus. Red Spotlight you can catch every single Sunday, sometimes on Thursdays, anywhere you listen to podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere, literally anywhere at this point. So thank you all. Stay under the spotlight, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.